Hey all, it's Taylor, and I've been using the 13-inch iPad Pro with M4 for 6 months. And the new Magic Keyboard, and the new Apple Pencil Pro. This is my first ever iPad purchase, and as such, this is my review, which basically boils down to these key things. The screen is incredible, it's got tons of power, and it's the same old iPadOS. All of this at a very steep price point. This video is not sponsored, and I paid for this iPad and its accessories with my own money, as well as the production of this video. If you want to show your support, hit that like button and subscribe. This is my favorite thing about the iPad Pro, the screen. It's 13 inches, which I specifically wanted over the 11-inch so that it matched the screen size of smaller Apple laptops. One of the things I wanted to see was if the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard could be a laptop substitute. My daily driver is a 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is quite a bit larger than this setup. I love how bright this screen gets outdoors, which is up to 1000 nits. I don't have the nano texture display, and outside screen clarity is fine for me. The HDR on the screen is just next level. I haven't seen any other screen come close to this quality in HDR. HDR gets up to 1600 nits of peak brightness. The screen is also Pro Motion, so it gets up to 120 Hz, which makes for some nice experiences for OS animations and games. It makes everything on the iPad feel extremely fluid. Best of all, the screen is OLED, so it's got incredible color contrast that sends a rush of dopamine to my brain every time I look at it. This iPad has tons of power with that M4. This thing is an absolute beast in CPU power and in GPU power. This is the 256 gig storage version of the iPad, so it's got that binned M4 with one less CPU core at 9 cores total, and it's also got 8 gigs of unified RAM. This thing handily beats the M2, and it even beats the M1 Max in my 16-inch MacBook Pro. This binned M4 has plenty of power for games, including the most demanding iPad games on the market at the time of this video. It's also powerful enough to handle workflows in pro-level apps. I can easily edit 4K videos in Final Cut Pro using footage from my Sony ZV-E1, which has some very large 10-bit 422 H.265 video clips. The iPad Pro can handle up to 4 streams of 4K footage with these clips, with the limiting factor looking like that 8 gigs of unified RAM. Post-production Taylor here. It looks like they have removed that limit from Final Cut Pro for 4 streams on 8 gigabytes of RAM, because here you can see that I actually have 6 streams of 4K going here. And if I play it, it obviously drops frames because that is a lot to be running on the iPad, but it looks like it is handling it. 6 streams of 4K right there. Now, how does the iPad stack up against a normal laptop? This is one of the questions I had initially when getting the iPad. I wanted to see if it would make for a good 13-inch laptop to complement my 16-inch MacBook Pro. First, the ergonomics of the Magic Keyboard are really nice, and it's got a similar profile to a 13-inch laptop like the MacBook Air. It's a little taller and a little narrower than a 13-inch M2 MacBook Air. The keyboard is excellent to type on because of those deep keys, it's backlit, and it has a function row, and it even has a nice typing sound. The glass trackpad feels like a smaller version of my 16-inch MacBook Pro trackpad while still having that Apple trackpad quality and feel. I got the white keyboard to see how it held up to dirt and grime, and I admit it's holding up a lot better than I thought it would, with only some light scuffs and slightly dirty corners. My first gripe with using the iPad Pro as a laptop is the port selection. There's only 2, and one of them is Thunderbolt, located on the iPad Pro with 40 gigabytes per second speed. The other, located on the keyboard itself, is USB-C with 10 gigabytes per second speed. So if you're plugging in Thunderbolt monitors or high-speed external drives, the single Thunderbolt port on the iPad is your only option. The fact that I can't properly eject my external drives that have video projects on them makes me real nervous, because I've had an experience in the past where all my data got corrupted from hard ejecting. So now I always eject my drives manually via the OS, and I can't do that here in iPadOS. This is definitely something you'll want to consider if you're planning on using the iPad Pro as your main editing machine. The other gripe is that it's not great to use on my lap like a laptop would be. It's very top heavy, so it's always falling, which means I have to use my palms as a sort of counterweight. This gets annoying really fast. In addition, it's just hard to open, unlike a laptop, which can be opened with one finger. The best method for opening it I found is gripping the sides with my index fingers and prying it up and open with my middle fingers. If you have fingernails, it's a little easier, but I do not have fingernails. Something I really love about the iPad Pro is FaceID. It makes signing in and installing software so much easier. In addition to that, the camera is a landscape orientation. That is a big win, as well as the volume buttons changing when in landscape to properly be left is volume down and right is volume up. This makes me super happy, and it's how it should be done on every device. I also got the Apple Pencil Pro, which has haptics and tap capabilities, both of which I've disabled shortly after using the pencil for about a month. I can see how these are useful, but they just got in the way for me, and I was always accidentally activating them when I didn't want to. Other than that, the pencil is great. I love the size and the weight of it. I like how the tip is replaceable so that if it breaks, don't have to buy a whole new pencil. It's got Find My, which I feel like is a must for an accessory this small. It works great for taking notes and making fine-tune adjustments to my photos in Lightroom. The input lag is super small, but make no mistake, it is not non-existent, and I do notice it in times where I'm writing very quickly. iPadOS is iPadOS, which is iOS with a dock. Yes, it holds the iPad back in terms of what you can do with it. A big thing for me is coding, since that's what I mainly do. That's just not possible on this OS. Final Cut Pro for iPad is incredibly well designed, and hats off to the team that made it happen. I'd still rather edit my videos on a laptop since I find the touch interface just too complex. It's possible I'm just old and Final Cut Pro on iPad is the future. I will say the voiceover feature in Final Cut Pro for iPad is incredible, and the microphones on the iPad Pro are really quite amazing.
Opening up Final Cut on the MacBook Air is a simple process. Here I have it blurred out so that you cannot see the serial number.
I have to mention this since I use Chrome all the time. The Chrome browser doesn't default to desktop websites out of the box and needs to be configured to do so. On top of that, opening a new tab won't auto-select the URL, which is incredibly frustrating as someone who opens multiple tabs daily for my workflow. I just want to open the tab and start typing. Two-finger click or tap doesn't open up the context menu like it does on macOS. You have to hold down the primary click to get the context menu. This makes sense from a touchscreen perspective, but makes zero sense when this iPad is connected to a physical keyboard and trackpad. On that same note, most iPad games don't recognize keyboard and mouse input, which means you can't just open a game using the Magic Keyboard and start playing. You have to either use the touchscreen interface, which is a freaking nightmare on a screen this large, or you have to connect a controller. The experience using a controller is very nice, but realistically, if I'm traveling with this iPad Pro, the only accessory I have is my external mouse. Finally, let's talk about price of the iPad Pro and all these accessories. I paid $1,796 USD for all this, and this is just the base 256 gig storage version, non-cellular iPad Pro. The price does include Apple Care Plus. I always get that with all my devices. For this amount of money right now, I could get an M4 MacBook Pro, which would be a more powerful machine and a more usable machine for my workflow specifically. I don't do any drawing outside of editing YouTube thumbnails, which by the way is super helpful on this iPad Pro. If drawing and animations are your thing, then you'll definitely find more value in the workflows that this iPad Pro offers than I do. For me personally, the value is in the portability of the iPad, the amazing screen, and the touchscreen experience that you can only get in the iPad right now. I use this for editing my YouTube thumbnails, reading ebooks, writing handwritten notes, and editing photos in Lightroom, all of which could be accomplished to the same effect with a significantly cheaper M1 iPad Pro. However, the M4 will provide me with plenty of power for the next several years for what I do. I would even bet that it would last me an entire decade for how I use it. And that is how I personally justify my purchase. Make of that what you will. Those are my thoughts after 6 months with the 13-inch M4 iPad Pro. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.